Hey everybody, and welcome to D&D Horror Stories with D&D Doge. You ever get into a game of Dungeons and Dragons, only to find out that the DM is quite possibly the worst person on Earth? Well, this player has. To the post. DM took away my agency. Not safe for work, long, and totally not satire. By Reddit user Tharkon140. This story happened some 10 years ago, but it's still livid in my mind. It's a horrifying and tragic tale that I will gladly share with you, though I take no responsibility for the extreme rage you are likely to feel towards my vile oppressors. But first, dramatis personae. Me, 22, male. Your humble narrator and veteran player / GM, having played D&D since 1973. I have more experience than most people I interact with, and so I frequently offer helpful suggestions to correct their fallacious ways of playing the game. I am not always able to break through human folly and stubbornness, but I always do my absolute best to champion ideas of player agency and supremacy on my way to end world hunger and Nat 1 rolls. R, 21 female, Human Rangers player, R for short. Green, perfectly groomed hair, braided to reveal a sculpted frowning face. Smart aquamarine eyes, set charmingly within her sockets. Works in retail and has a gopher as her animal companion. Kanji, 20 male. Furbolg's fighter player. A random symbol for short. Black, short hair, neatly coiffured to reveal a furrowed, sad face. Beady blue eyes set narrowly within his sockets. Likes waffles and Better Call Saul. Blood type B negative, and a Libra. 2.718, square root of 420 male. Elven Wizards player, E for short. Bald, fat, autistic, vegan. Stole my kill once during the session. His opinions about chaotic evil races is opposite to yours. Rolf, 2 male. My dog. Likes fighting plastic bottles. Hey, I think that's my cousin. You go, Rolf. DM, 666 male. The neckbeard running the session. Birth child of Asmodeus and Cruella de Vil, and main source of the problems at the table. You will see why soon. Anyway, we were playing some D&D 5e, and, in an unusual twist, we were to start in the tavern. This was a huge marinara flag, as it meant the DM didn't read my backstory. Page 42 clearly detailed why my original character's traumatic backstory made him stay away from taverns, something I calmly but firmly pointed out. Instead of acknowledging his mistake, the DM punished me by having my character stand outside the tavern while the rest of the party talked to some NPC that they were railroaded into accepting a job offer from. So petty. Our group was then sent to kill some monster in the swamp. When we arrived, the DM proceeded to describe how foggy it was, and how we could barely see anything. It was clear he was setting up a TPK by limiting our options, but I had a plan. I pulled out my homebrew race, homebrew background, homebrew class character sheet, and proudly said, "I have true sight, which means I can see through any kind of fog." Upon which everyone clapped. Or maybe their envy and resentment of me was painted on their faces. I can't decide on the narrative. I mean, I can't remember the events right now. The DM looked at me with hatred, his nefarious plan foiled by my amazing abilities. But then, as though some fiendish idea entered his dark mind, he grinned like a maddening gremlin with malicious satisfaction. He opened his blood-stained lips and said, "Look, I don't want to check the rules now, and you seeing through the fog would mess up my plans, so let's just say you can't." I gasped, and yet it didn't feel like any air entered my lungs. My body, mind, and soul were only filled with indignant despair. Nay, the purest nihilistic pain that could only come from the illusion of free will being shattered in front of my tear-filled eyes. I realized that the unspoken contract between player and the DM has been broken, torn apart, revealed for a multi-layered scam that it was. I saw that every choice I had in this game was just an illusion, that my agency had been a lie, and the whole character journey I put my heart and soul into creating was just a puppet show enacted for the sick amusement of the crazed control freak that was our DM. I couldn't handle it. I cried and ran from the table, knowing that my sanity, nay, my very life was threatened by this despicable monster of a DM and his cohort of complicit, gaslighted players. These collaborators would message me later, but they not only failed to offer comfort, they chided me and sided with the tyrannical DM. They asked why I ran off like that, as though they couldn't tell, and attempted to muddy the conversation by whining about me flipping the table before running off and saying some words they considered slurs. Also, the DM, Dolphin Mortifier, is a convicted felon, an oil baron, a domestic abuser, a former witch hunter, and a 4th edition fan, in case I forgot to mention that. Man, that Dungeon Master has to be the worst one I've read about yet. I can't imagine why any of the players would side with him, especially considering the fact that he was a former witch hunter, oil baron, and all those other things. Though it is good to hear that OP managed to escape his oppressive, controlling DMing. OP would have been a fool to stay in that game. Get it? Because April Fools? Yeah, this is a video. Now, in all seriousness, I have been sitting on that story for a while, like almost 3 years, as I couldn't really figure out what to do with it. But this seemed like the perfect time to unleash it on all of you. I found it to be a funny take on some of the stories people post on Reddit, where they play the victim, but when reading their stories, you can tell that they were the problem. But with that, this next story was posted with, what I imagine, the intent of people believing it. But after reading it, I just can't bring myself to believe that this poster actually stayed in a game of this caliber, and figured, why not read it for April Fool's Day? Though, before we dive into that, here is Simba to try to cute his way into getting some likes from y'all. Boy, he got big, didn't he? But with that, let's get into this doozy of a story. Dungeon Master removes my spells, ignores my rolls, and even makes me explode for sleeping. By Reddit user, Krillcure. I've played D&D for a while, and I like to think that I can handle a tough campaign. I don't mind losing fights, I don't mind making mistakes, and I definitely don't mind challenges. But I've been in a game recently where it feels like I'm not actually allowed to play. I wanted to ask for advice, because I don't know if I'm just being too critical, or if this Dungeon Master is actually going out of their way to ruin my experience. When I joined, I expected a normal session 1, where we'd all start together. But no, the other player, who is the DM's friend, had already played an entire session alone. By the time I showed up, the other player was already level 3, and had 3 hours of exclusive lore, world building, and character development that I was never given. The Dungeon Master never even mentioned this beforehand. I was just thrown in behind, missing tons of context and progression. At first, I figured this was just bad communication, and that I could catch up naturally. But it only got worse. I started noticing that my rolls had no actual impact on the game. One of our early missions involved getting information from a merchant. I tried using persuasion and rolled well, but the DM just shrugged and said, "They refuse anyway." Okay, fine. I tried intimidation, rolled a natural 20, and the DM didn't even hesitate to say, "They aren't scared of you." At this point, I realized skill checks didn't actually do anything. No matter what I rolled, the Dungeon Master had already decided the outcome before I even tried. So, since talking clearly was not an option, I made the decision to knock them out non-lethally to interrogate them later. What actually happened? I one-shot them instantly. Not because I hit too hard, but because the Dungeon Master decided they just died immediately, no matter what. And that's when things went from bad to complete nonsense. Yeah, so far, this just sounds like your standard D&D horror story fare. But this is when things start to sound outlandish, to the point that I question the validity of the story. But let's just keep playing along. The moment the merchant dropped dead, every single guard in the city immediately knew about it and swarmed the building within seconds. No alarms were triggered. No one saw me do it. There was no possible way they could know. But somehow, every guard in the city just magically appeared outside. At first, I actually got excited, thinking, okay, maybe this will turn into a cool chase scene. So I tried running upstairs to escape through a window. But no, there were already guards waiting for me in the bedroom. See what I mean? How? How did they teleport into a private bedroom before I even got there? Did they have psychic powers? Were they scrying on me? Did the entire town just operate under a shared telepathic network? No, the DM just made it impossible for me to escape. At this point, I had zero options. Teleporting as Shadar Kai? No. Using magic? No. Trying to fight my way out? No. Bribing the guards? No. Strength check to break free? No. The Dungeon Master wasn't giving me any chance to escape. This wasn't me failing to get away. This was the Dungeon Master deciding that I wasn't allowed to. So I was thrown in prison. At this point, I figured, okay, this is just a challenge to overcome. So I looked for ways to get out. Nope. I tried to escape. Denied. I tried to bribe someone. Denied. I tried to cast a spell. Denied. I tried to talk my way out. Denied. I was stuck. There was no gameplay, no choices, no solutions. Just a box where I had to sit quietly and wait. And the worst part? The other player kept playing without me. I had to sit there in complete silence for 20 minutes because I was in another location, and the DM did not allow out-of-character discussion, so I wasn't allowed to speak at all. I was literally removed from the game while the other player got to continue having fun. Now, this is where I start to press X to doubt. You would think that at this point, OP would speak up about how BS this whole situation was, or just flat out quit the game, especially seeing how OP stated at the beginning that they are an experienced Dungeons & Dragons player. But let's continue, just for the entertainment value, as things get much more outlandish. When I finally hit level 5, I picked 2 third-level spells. 1, Glyph of Warding, and 2, Leomund's Tiny Hut. The second I chose Glyph of Warding, the DM immediately banned it, saying it was too OP. Did he let me pick another spell? Nope, it was just gone forever. Again, another point where a player would or should just write off the game, cut their losses, and no D&D is better than bad D&D out of there. But believe it or not, it gets more unbelievable. That was frustrating, but at least I still had Leomund's Tiny Hut, right? Wrong. At this point, I was broke because the DM kept killing me and taking my gold. Well, if your character kept dying, you would think OP would have to make a new character, unless the other player had an unlimited supply of Revivify components. We went to a tavern. The DM's friend got a room for 2 silver, but somehow, when I asked for a room, there was only one, quote, luxury suite left, and it cost 5 gold. I wasn't going to pay that, so I figured, fine, I'll just sleep outside. And to stay warm, I cast Leomund's Tiny Hut. though apparently this was a big mistake. The DM just decided it explodes. Not because I failed the spell, not because of an enemy attack. It just exploded for no reason. And only on me. It didn't explode when cast near enemies, only when I used it for survival. So, how would it be used other than for survival? Casting it on enemies? This story just continues to get more outlandish as it goes on. So, I tried to just sleep in a normal bedroll instead. And guess what? It also exploded. I wish I was joking. As I expect OP is, because I don't think even a sadist would take this much punishment. But the DM literally made my bedroll explode, forcing me to make death saving throws. Meanwhile, the other player slept peacefully in a warm bed for 2 silver. I also built my bard as a science-based character. I used knowledge of chemistry and physics instead of relying on magic. At first, this was fine, until I used a clever idea to defeat an enemy. In one fight, I used the environment to create an explosion inside a brick, effectively one-shotting it. It was a strong strategy, but it made sense in the world. The DM allowed it, but then banned all future scientific ideas for being, quote, too OP. Now, I can't use oil fires, explosions, or even basic chemistry. Even when I tried to light oil on fire, I was told, that doesn't work. One session was particularly bad. Another session? As in more than one. You can see why I think this story is total BS now, right? We died 6 times, not because of bad rolls or poor planning, but because the DM forced us into unwinnable situations. How would you die 6 times? I mean, after both characters would die, it would be game over. He even removed basic mechanics like opportunity attacks when they would have benefited us. The fights weren't challenging, they were just impossible. At this point, I feel like I'm not actually playing D&D. As I think, I'm not actually reading a real story. Every time I try to do something, the DM shuts me down, bans it, or makes it explode. Even basic things, like lighting oil on fire, have been denied. I feel like I'm being targeted at this point, but I don't know if this is just how some DMs run games, or if this is genuinely bad DMing. Seriously? How would anyone wonder if this was how D&D is actually played? What do you guys think? Should I just leave? Or is there a way to salvage this? Well, I would say that there is no way to salvage something that doesn't exist. But let's play along on the off chance that this story actually happened. My first reaction would be, what the hell are you still doing in this game? Honestly, the moment the DM started not letting you pass any rolls, and then jail your character, and making you sit there and watch the other player play, with not being allowed to talk, you should have gotten up and walked out. Then there is all of the other things that I won't really go back into, since they're all just so stupid. So, assuming that this is true, which I doubt, no OP, there is no salvaging this at all. And it is not how D&D is supposed to go. Though you should know this, since you're an experienced D&D player, as you stated at the beginning of the story. So get the heck out of there, and maybe watch some actual plays on YouTube in order to know when a DM is just messing with you. But that is all I have for you today. May all your rolls be natural ones, and I'll see you next time for a normal video. Thanks for watching.